Okay. Well, next team on the list here, similar schedule, by the way, because they're in the same division here, but it's the Colts over under 10 wins for the Colts.
I see. I think that's a little bit high. I do. I think if I had to put money on it, I would say the under on that one. What about you, buddy?
Given that I just went through that brutal schedule for the AFC South this year, I would agree with you. I think they're a 10-6 team. I think that Houston is a 9-7, 10-6 team. So for me, that's one that's right on the line for me. If I had to go one way, before recording the show, honestly, I probably, if you had to pick me, I probably would have leaned towards the over. But again, that schedule is brutal. So the Colts open on the road against the Chargers, but the Chargers never really open the season well. So that could be a nice early win for the Colts. On the road against Tennessee.
Sean, you know what surprises me is the fact that we've gone over so many of these teams now, and like teams that I would assume are much better are only getting like 9 wins.
I know.
I mean, I can't name any offhand. Maybe one was Minnesota or something like that. But there was a handful of them. And it was like, okay, over under 9, over under 10. And they're giving the Colts 10 just like that? What is that?
Well, I think they believe in – well, the Colts, by the way, they've added Justin Houston in the offseason. Their offensive line is great. Luck played all 16 games last year. When Marlon Mack played last year, they were a force, and they went on a streak as well. I remember you and me talking about how the AFC South, the Texans and the Colts, they were both on crazy streaks going into the playoffs.
Look, I like Andrew Luck. I really do. And I do believe in him. So I guess my point is it's like all these other teams that have proven themselves to be good and have a lot of opportunity, I don't think the Colts have yet. They're the ones that get the 10 win.
Yeah, I get it. But I also think that their team is the type of team that's built for sustainability. And the big difference between, I think, the Colts and the Texans is I think the Colts got a little bit stronger in the offseason on defense, whereas I think maybe the Texans might have gotten just a little weaker, and then the Colts have a fortified offensive line and the Texans don't. So to me, like I said, I think that the line at 10 is reasonable, but I think where it missed was I feel like the Texans should have been at 9 wins. But there you go.
Right. You know what? I would agree with you for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a 1-win differential for me if I were in charge of making the odds. But from a fantasy point of view, I like Luck. I know he's out with a calf strain at this point, and he's going to be held out of the first preseason game. Look, if this was last season, him coming off that shoulder and him coming back, I'd be a little bit more concerned. I'm not concerned about the calf strain. I saw it all over ESPN this morning. I'm not interested or concerned about it at all. It's not affecting my fantasy rankings. I love him. Marlon Mack, I'm a lot higher on than other people. His average draft position is actually pretty low. I like him because, like I said, when he came into the lineup last season, he was basically the primary ball carrier, and he was more of a 3-down back. I know Hines is there to get some receptions out of the backfield, but Mack is a strong running back, and he's a guy I really like in my in my rankings. T.Y. Hilton, I think, is going to have a huge year. Brad, what do you think?
Always, man. He's one of my favorite players. I don't know what it is about him, but I mean, he always just seems so happy to catch the ball. Yeah. He's always, every time it's funny because I never watch the Colts, right? But every time there's a game break, it's T.Y. Hilton catching one for 75 yards, I mean, the guy is just phenomenal.
He is, and I don't think – what I like about T.Y. is there doesn't seem to be a cornerback that can really shut him down. Like, he's successful against different coverages and everything. It's hard to limit him. But here's another interesting kind of nugget for the offseason, Brad. Maybe some of that stretch between them and the Texans is the this is an underrated move, and I have it outlined and talked about ad nauseum in my book, but the addition of Devin Funchess coming over from Carolina as a big target to basically draw not targets, but draw coverage away from T.Y. Hilton. And he's another red zone target. I think that actually strengthens Hilton because I think he'll get more over-the-top type throws. And I like Funchess. Look, he wasn't that productive in Carolina, but he was pretty productive, and that's a good thing in that scheme. I think he's a pretty good receiver. I think he'll be nice there. And then they drafted another guy by the name of Paris Campbell, who I like quite a bit too. So I think the receiving core, I just think that this Colts team and this organization they're putting together, I think they're drafting well, and they're adding pieces that make makes sense for the scheme. And then on top of that, Brad, you have Ebron and you have Doyle there at tight ends. Like, there's not really a weakness on this entire offense, and their defense isn't bad.
Right. And, we always hype up Luck, so, I mean, he could have a really tremendous year.
Yeah, absolutely. And
he could have, not that a breakout would be the incorrect term, but he could have just one of those defining years where we all say from this point forward, it's Rodgers, Brady, Breeze, and Andrew Luck.
And Mahomes.
Correct.
Yep.
But you know what I'm saying.
I do.
He'd be in that narrative, in that grouping.
That lexicon.
Yeah, huh?
I think that I have him projected at like 40 touchdowns. I haven't looked at my projections for him, but I think he'll get 40 this year, and that's a huge year.
Yeah, I would put money on him getting 40 for sure.
Yeah, and on top of that, remember I was talking about Max, so that's what I think of this offense. I don't think it's just going to be Luck throwing for a bunch of touchdown passes, and there's not going to be any rushing touchdowns. I think Mac will get touchdowns, and I think Luck will. I think this is going to be a very good offense. Not quite as good as Kansas City's. I'm still bullish on now that we have Tyreek Hill back there, but again, we'll talk about that in a few weeks here with the AFC West.